Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Boiler Express podcast. We got the big brain and the not so big brain in the building today. Frank, how we doing?
I'm doing well, man. Excited to see some Purdue football this Saturday. I got to ask, is that a hammer
Yeah, I
next to
was
you?
just on the Big Ten podcast is at Guggenheim, and at the end of the prediction, I brought out the
Nice.
hammer because you got to. When you have the props, you got to use them.
A comment here from Cody asking, what's up? Doing
Cody,
well,
what's
Cody.
happening?
Doing well. Happy to have you in here, man. Um, Dylan, did you listen to the Coach Walter show this week by
I
chance?
did. I did not.
So he talked about they wanted to develop some sort of tradition, and that tradition sort of manifested in the hammer and the spike that you see after the game
Oh
now.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they had someone do it after the, let's say, summer camp. It was Mo Amanode ended up getting the MVP for that, and then Hudson Card got it game one. It's something they're going to do every week. But another thing he said that I thought was amazing is that he instills a bunch of university pride in the players. So he
Wow,
actually made every player throughout the summer learn the fight song.
I
And he
love it.
had different units come in and actually sing it as a group. So the tight ends or wide receivers, DBs, et cetera. And it became like a competition throughout the summer to actually see which unit could sing it the best. And then they added their own little twist at the end where they say BTFU. So
I love it. I do.
pretty
I do
sweet.
like how he breaks down stuff with BTF, and then the whole crowd goes "you." I love
Yeah.
that.
Love
But
it.
I love that he does that. I think that's super important. And I was going to tweet the other day. Davila is always posting Purdue related things. I think he posts more Purdue related things than like personal related things. And I love when guys are at a school and they have pride in the school, which I feel like in the NIL era especially has been a lost art. But I feel like from the sounds of it, Walt is instilling the pride of Purdue, and I am all about that. The hammer down the spike thing was super cool. I had one guy said that Hudson didn't like swing the hammer hard enough, and I said I am perfectly fine with our starting star quarterback taking it easy on the hammer. Like,
Agreed.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm 100% okay with that.
A single one is for him to throw out a shoulder,
Of
injure a
all ways to
forearm or
do it.
something like that. Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And another thing
Uh,
he said too was about the jerseys and that, for the longest time, and I feel like this is kind of a knock on maybe some previous coaching staff, but he said for the longest time you could turn on the TV and there was no question who was playing because you'd see the stripes, you'd see the jerseys.
yeah,
And he wanted to kind of revert back to that with his own, modern twist. So we see the jerseys, right? We see the stripes, and I love that.
I do
Now,
too.
whether he actually means that or he's just kind of sort of pandering to the fans, I'm not really sure.
Either way, I'll
Uh,
take it.
Either way, I'll take it though. I'm happy to hear it.
I do
Like
love how they say Purdue across the chest. I think that's awesome. And
I
it's
I
the
love these jerseys. I was
I do
never a
too.
fan of I understand what it was supposed to be on the shoulders previous years. Uh,
But
it
it
just
didn't really like unless you knew, you didn't know they were a cow catcher.
Mhm. No, I
Like
didn't know for 2 or 3 years.
especially at first when they first came out them they had three stripes, and then Adidas, this is what I heard from Ted from Boiler Uniforms, who's a trustful source when it comes to uniforms. But then I guess Adidas came knocking and was like, "Hey, three stripes, can't do that." So
To me,
then
it
they had
just
to do
reminded me
four.
of Oregon. Like we were trying to do some
Yeah, it was
sort of
very
some
Oregon-y.
Oregon
Yeah,
thing,
I
but
see it.
yeah, he also said no more chrome helmets, at least for now.
Well, they're
Uh,
so expensive. I mean, it's
yeah,
I don't really blame them if they look great. Don't get me wrong, chrome helmets are sick, but from the amount of money it takes not only to buy them but to upkeep them, it's pretty outrageous. But now I've seen some high school teams. There's a company that came out. They're called Skins, I think, and they can do chrome or any other color of this thin plastic material that sits on the helmet, and then you screw it in, and then you can switch. But I doubt you'll see that in college because it's kind of cheap looking, but it's great for high school. But maybe that's a route old Walt will take.
a comment here from Cody. He's ready to talk smack to his family member who's a Notre Dame fan.
Heck
They're going to
yeah.
be watching the game together at a family reunion.
Ooh, don't fight
Cody,
him.
don't let that family reunion get too feisty.
Don't throw any punches.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah. Speaking of, whoa, I don't like that. Let's
Hey,
go back.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of, yeah, Purdue plays Notre Dame this weekend, Dylan. If you didn't know,
I forgot.
um,
I was kidding.
in my opinion, the buzz is there among the fans. Um, It just seems like a lot of people are optimistic, especially if case for anyone who's listening, they didn't know Notre Dame lost in Northern Illinois this past weekend.
In case you're living under a rock.
And I mean, at no point in the game did they look great. I think it's a safe bet to say Riley Leonard is not living up to expectations. He's actually the 204th ranked quarterback according to
Wow.
PFF right now.
Wow.
Hudson Card is third, by the way. There's a sample size difference there, but regardless, people feel like it's a winnable game. To quote friend of the podcast, Mark Hill Jones. I am trying to parse out the difference between seeing Notre Dame lose last week and them getting a fire lit underneath them, so to speak, versus okay, they're dejected. They feel like it's just the typical Notre Dame. What do you think, Dylan? What's if you're a player and you're say you play for Notre Dame, how do you respond? Do you come out firing, or is your morale down? And what do you think Notre Dame is going to do?
I mean, it's your morale's definitely not up. I don't see a way how Marcus Freeman comes into this week like everything's fine, like everything's okay. Like we just lost to one of the worst MAC teams. I think they'll start slow. I think they'll have trouble scoring at first because I believe Purdue's defense is pretty stout, and I think Notre Dame's offensive line has a lot of holes, and they have a lot of issues that they'll have to iron out this week when going against guys like Will Helt. I think guys like Will Helt and others are going to have a game against this offensive line. I think they're going to tear them up. At least I hope. It's going to be interesting to see how Notre Dame responds. But I think they'll come out a little flat, and I really hope, more importantly, that Purdue takes advantage of that and starts the game hot. And I hope Purdue comes out fast-paced, ready to go, and kind of catches Notre Dame maybe a little off guard and catches them on a downslope if possible.
And my favorite thing about that game, Dylan, I don't know if you got to watch it or not, but the best part was the commercials throughout where they it was like, this year is different, right? That was like the mantra throughout the commercial. And I'm like, well, is it? I mean, you guys are in a very close game with Northern Illinois at the time. So I mean, obviously they pre-schedule these commercials, but when looking at Notre Dame on paper, I mean, again, in week 1 against Texas A&M, they got a pass blocking grade of 52. Now that was against Texas A&M, who has a monster and Nick Scorton on the edge. So like one can, shove that off, but didn't only have a 62 pass block grade against Northern Illinois, who granted is now ranked and also looked really good in week 1. But to me, in watching that game, that's where I noticed that was the biggest point of emphasis for me, was the fact that their offensive line was just getting pummeled, just getting absolutely pummeled by Northern Illinois. I mean, again, I saw it happen against Texas A&M, but I think that's where Purdue can have a big advantage in this game. I think that if we can generate that pressure up front. I mean, Leonard hasn't been great. There's some numbers on him in terms of where he's been, how he's done under pressure versus when he's kept clean. It's abysmal when we look at it. But I'll pull that up here. Do you have any other thoughts while I pull this up?
Like you said, like I said earlier, their offensive line just looked so bad, and they looked out of sorts. And if you're out of sorts against a Northern Illinois team who looks pretty good, I think they're preseason ranked second to last in the MAC, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, I don't know. I just hope, like I said, Purdue takes advantage of their misfortune, and they got to come out hot, and they got to come out quick. And you got to start a solid. I would hope they'd start with a solid running game, see how that works out with Mockamy and Jordan Love, and then maybe go on to opening the field.
Not Jordan Love. Jordan Love's done for the season.
Is he really?
Reggie Love.
Damn.
Not the Packers quarterback. Yeah.
You know how I am with names, and what I call Sindelar, Elijah Sindelar. No, I call him Jared.
Jared Sindelar. Yeah,
I call him Jared. So historically, I'm good with names.
Yeah. So some numbers here. Riley Leonard this season has been under pressure exactly 1/3 of plays, 33.3% of the time, despite the fact that he's only been blitzed 26%. So there's a gap there. But under pressure, his adjusted completion percentage is 36%. Adjusted completion percentage also accounts for drops. So if you hit the receiver in the hand and they don't catch it, it still counts as a completion for the sake of this stat. So when he's kept clean, 78% adjusted completion. So again, 36% to 78%. I mean, to me, that seems like the key to shutting down their offense. And so, we have a small sample size. We've only seen one game, and it was against one of the worst FCS teams in recent years. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see some secondary blitzes, some creative blitzes, some stunts, some stings, a way to get Kydron Jenkins getting some pressure there. But ultimately, I mean, if we're going to have a blitz-heavy defensive scheme, then it's going to come down to how does the secondary perform, which we really don't know. Um, Walters did say Nyland Green is not playing,
It's
and
tough.
I've never seen people so upset about a player who's never played a snap in a Purdue uniform.
Yeah,
Not seeing him play. I mean,
yeah.
it's like we're like an established heralded star. Not saying he's not. I just love how the Purdue fan base is very sad about the fact that he's not playing.
They hit the panic button pretty quick sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, they do. Some comments here on paper. It's leaning the Boilers. One thing that scares me: Notre Dame is going to be playing ticked off. Yeah, who knows? I mean, they could be ticked off. They could be, have their morale down. There's all sorts of possibilities, but I think that's where my mind trends, Cody, as well. Another comment: Leonard Shoulder is in no way healthy. I'm telling you, our defense are like sharks. They know he's hurt. They're going to make sure he doesn't get good passes. Yeah, we haven't talked about that yet, but he is questionable. It sounds like he's going to play, but he has I think it's a torn labrum in his non-throwing shoulder. And so, Dylan, you've played sports. I played football when I was young. The thought of getting tackled or getting sacked and falling on a shoulder with a torn labrum sounds terrible.
Does not sound fun, especially when you know your O line performed not so great the week before. That's got to be in the back of your head, and you think he's going to be a little skittish on throwing the ball.
And
So
you can't tell me that's not going to be in his head.
it would be in anybody. It'd be weird if it wasn't. Like it's
Yeah.
just falling on that shoulder. It would. Oh my god, that'd be terrible.
Like, oh, here comes Will Helt charging straight at me.
Yeah,
Like, I can complete this pass, but this is gonna hurt. I mean, so
it's
there's that mental aspect, and who knows how long he's been dealing with this too. It could just be uh, an excuse. I mean, for lack of a better term. Um, I I would have loved to have discussed this with a certain group who may be affiliated with Notre Dame. Unfortunately, we didn't get that opportunity this week as we
yeah.
had hoped, but that's neither here nor there. So we got some hot takes here in the comments. Green doesn't start until week 4. I don't think that's a hot take. I think that he's more injured than what Walters has led on. And yeah, he said things in his press conference about, Walters has to stop himself from looking at him because he just looks so good and he looks so healthy. And every time he watches him work out, he's like, man, he's ready to go. But who knows how much truth there is. I mean, I would say the same thing if I were a coach. I wouldn't want to tip my hand. So I get that. And then JR down in the comments picked Purdue to
Hey,
win this weekend. Don't prove me wrong, Ryan Walters. Yeah, I think the line is something like Notre Dame 10.5, I think is what it
yeah.
is.
I think I
Uh,
read 10.5 somewhere. Jr. The fact you picked Notre Dame makes me nervous. No, I'm kidding. Love you, Jr.
Appreciate that, JR. I'll pull up the line here and I know it opened at 12.5 and it's moved a decent amount since then. So we talked a little bit about what Purdue needs to do offensively, mostly talked about defensively. But Dylan, if you had to say one player on offense who goes off, and that being the key to win this game, who is that?
I would love to see Jamal Edrin go off. I mean, that guy, I knew he was big, but and you were there too. When you see that guy in person, the
He's
dude's a
big.
unit. He's a tight end playing wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like he's a beast. And you could say that about a lot of guys. The weight room was busy this summer, this off season, for the Boilers. But I'd love to see Edrin go off. I'd love to see Maccabee get a few solid touchdowns, good carries, spread the ball a little bit around. But yeah, I'd love to see Jamal Edrin get some major yards against Notre Dame. I think that'd be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and you are right. He is a massive human being. I mean, and I think it was Graham Harrell who even said it's almost like he's a small tight end.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Walter said that was an emphasis in the offseason was to get bigger bodies. They just wanted bigger people who are better at blocking. And I mean, when you have a 6'3" or 6'4" guy blocking, they're just going to be a better blocker than a
yeah.
5'10" guy, just inherently. We got a comment here. I say mock train because Notre Dame is going to be focused on Hudson. Yeah, and I think that raises a good point in that they don't have a ton of film on us, and that they being Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They don't have they don't know our pass protection. They know Indiana State only threw the ball 10 times, and I think that could play to our advantage as well.
Yep.
So that's yeah, all sorts of possibilities there. But yeah, mock train is going to be important. Reggie Love is going to be important. But yeah, I'm right there with you in that Edrin's going to be a major contributor in this game. And I'm just going to say the tight ends because I feel like we have a really talented tight end group. Max Clare, we all know what he's capable of doing, but Drew Bibber looked really good in the first game. And I think those are going to be the core. Obviously, the O line. I mean, we could go through and name every position, but yeah, O line as well.
Yeah, Bibber kind of he's really quick on his feet. Like he's a real athletic. You know, I think he had that little jump over a defender. You know, close to the sideline late in the game. But his athleticism was a good sight to see. Same with Claire's really good. I mean, that can't go wrong with that. But yeah, the tight ends. I think against a team like Notre Dame, tight end play is pretty important.
Yeah. So, we talk and we joke, and maybe I can get a legitimate answer. But let's say what's the margin of victory if Purdue wins this game? Is it a close game? Is it a game that we run away with? Let's just start there. Is it a close game, or is it a game that we win by a lot if we win? I mean, like I said, Vegas has it at 9.5 right now. Open at 12.5, and depending on who you ask, which sports book, it's between 10 and 9.5.
I don't know. Scoring in this game is going to be interesting. I would like. I know my go-to score right now is Purdue 21, Notre Dame 17, and I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be a defensive battle, but I do think the Purdue D line is going to overrun Notre Dame's offensive line. I think they just looked terrible last week against a Northern Illinois team. So I'd like to see 21-17, but for the sake of this cool hat that I'm wearing, Boilers by 1 billion.
Yeah, talk about that hat, Dylan. Where'd you get that?
I don't want to give away my secrets, but it's the best $23 I have ever spent in my life.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll sell them. We'll see. But yeah, no, it's the quickest and easiest. And the fact I know I can get hats made for $23 and have them shipped to my place in under a week means I'm going to make some more hats. Maybe like a Russ's old hat. You never know.
And so is it you only need to order one?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's on Etsy. You can find them on Etsy.
Nice.
Okay. Shout out to Etsy.
Man, I thought it was some underground thing the way you were describing it.
No. That's the way I wanted it to sound, but in reality, it's someplace in Texas.
Can't give away my source here. Etsy. Yeah. Yeah. Got some comments here. I say 28-17 Purdue, but Boilers by 1 billion. Yeah. I mean, that's I'm in agreement with you, Dylan. I'm in the 28-24. Just looking, Texas A&M was only able to score 13. Northern Illinois scored 16, but a lot of that were their kind of self-inflicted wounds as well. A couple turnovers. So I think if Purdue takes care of the ball, which was a problem last season, but if Purdue takes care of the ball, this has potential for Purdue to win by, let's say, 10. Again, I would love to be able to ask a Notre Dame affiliated person what they think, but
we tried.
We'll just have to. Yeah, we tried. Yeah,
we did our best. Our people called their people.
We'll have to stick with our Homer takes for now. So it will be 85 degrees, as someone said in the comments. I believe that was Chris.
Not too bad.
So hotter than the season opener, which was 74, but I don't. It didn't feel like 74, so that'll be great. It sounds like no rain, but fingers crossed on that front. I have a question in the comments. Do you think Walter's reliance on one high man coverage will stifle Notre Dame's run game by stacking the box and taking away free access throws? Yeah, I mean, it definitely could. And I think that's the kind of the goal of playing that defensive scheme, right, is to get more players up in the box. And I know Antonio Stevens has kind of taken over that Sanusi Kane role we saw from last season, where he's, a safety, but he's playing up in the box specifically to stop the run game. So I just think it ultimately comes down to how the DBs can perform when they're when they're on islands. Got a comment here. Ryan Walters greater than Marcus Freeman. Boilers by a billion. Yeah, I appreciate that, Eric.
Let's go, Eric.
Yeah. Oh, and us Purdue. It's going to be weird because we have a soft spot for Marcus Freeman. You know, he's a former Purdue guy, so it's, you know, it's obviously nice
That's what
to
I say it all the time. I hate that Notre Dame hired a guy that I like
yeah.
because I just can't stand Notre Dame, but I like Marcus Freeman. But I think we talked about this when we were on. Eric and I were just on Guggenheim. Shout out to Zach. And he's. I think Eric put it well. Like Freeman got put up really quick, really fast with Notre freaking Dame that has very high expectations. I think he's a great coach. But you know, getting your first head coaching gig at Notre Dame, shoo, I mean that's a doozy.
That's tough. And see, I see this game. If I'm Notre Dame, I look at this game as a must win on the schedule.
Yeah.
Because after they play Purdue, they play Miami, Ohio at home.
Shut up.
So
Go
who
Red
knows?
Hawks.
Who knows how they've done against MAC? You know, considering how they've done against MAC schools, but you know, then they play Louisville, Stanford, Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State, Virginia, Army, and then at USC, their rivals. I mean, so their schedule doesn't less. So this is a must win for them, you know, because you look at this game and you look at, you know, having Miami, Ohio being the, you know, the gimme after this one, but the rest are toss ups in my opinion for them. So I know we've kind of seen this downfall in recent years of Notre Dame, but this is the one they're going to be looking to make a statement with, in my opinion. And that's why I really wanted them to win against Northern Illinois. I wanted them to come in, you know, not necessarily too angry, but you know, we will get our opponent's best, and we're going to see what this team's truly made of. So, last question, Dylan. If Purdue wins the game, let's say they win by a touchdown, are you going to be drinking the Kool-Aid?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
all day long. I mean, I kind of am already, and I have been since the off season. But give me a win against, you know, all things considered, a pretty good Notre Dame team. I won't go as far as calling them really good because really good teams don't lose to Northern Illinois or Illinois. I keep saying
At
Illinois
home.
today. Yeah, at home nonetheless. So I you know, no, I'll be chugging the Kool-Aid. And it's the red kind, which is the best kind. But yeah, I love it. I think a big win against Notre Dame would be the first of a few possible big wins for Walters in his year 2 at Purdue. Because you look at the schedule, we've talked about how daunting this schedule is. It is a doozy. And if you kick it off with the big win against Notre Dame, that's a good springboard into the year.
Now, how are you feeling after a loss, a hypothetical loss?
It depends on the spread of the loss. Like how bad was the loss? Was it a close game? You know, if it's a close game, I'm still feeling pretty good because you kept it competitive and you didn't go out and embarrass yourself. If it's a blowout and we do terrible against a Notre Dame team that just lost to Northern Illinois, then I'm not feeling as good. So I don't want to say there's such thing as a good loss because there's not. But if Purdue goes out on Saturday and gives Notre Dame hell and gives them a big scare again, then I feel pretty good. I don't feel great, but I feel good. But if they go out and get embarrassed, that's a whole different story.
Now, do you see this game as Purdue playing with house money? And that Purdue has everything to gain by winning and nothing to lose by losing.
Yeah,
It kind of rides the line, doesn't it?
It really does, because when you think
Yeah.
about both sides, you know, it really, you're right. It's right on the fence there. It's hard to come up with one either way. That's tough. That's a really good question.
I think without the loss last week, it's a definite yes. Purdue's playing with house money, but now they've shown some vulnerability. They've shown that they can be beaten by a team that they should have blown out, a team that they were, I think, a 3-touchdown favorite over at home. So I think that sort of puts a little bit of pressure on Purdue, but it kind of rides the line. You know, I don't think that, you know, a loss is going to be embarrassing, let's say, or you know, no one's gonna hold that against Purdue. But I think the expectations are a little bit higher. But you're going to the game, right?
Yeah, I will be at the game. Super stoked. It's a 3:30 game, which means I don't have to leave my house at the butt crack of dawn. So pretty stoked for that. But yeah, I'll be there. Section 124. If you see me, holla at your boy.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about what the crowd makeup is
I'm
like. 'Cause
excited to see what it is.
I'm genuinely curious. Is it
Yeah,
70-30 or 60-40? I've been to Purdue. I was there the last time Purdue played Notre Dame
yeah,
at home, and I would say it was probably 70-30.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, the Notre Dame fans, they travel really well. Last time I saw Notre Dame was the Shamrock Series of Lucas Oil, and there were so many obnoxious Notre Dame fans. I'm
was
not
that
saying they're all like that.
was that 2014,
Ye
2012?
20 oh, 12. It
Yeah,
was Hazel, wasn't it? I wanna say it was Hazel. It
it
wasn't
was
Brock.
Hazel.
It had
Yeah.
to been Hazel, yeah.
Well, and that's the great thing about the. It's still fair to call it a rivalry, is it
Oh,
not?
yeah, absolutely. If they're no, it's because we both hate each other. I mean,
Yeah.
do Notre Dame fans specifically hate Purdue? I don't know, but, like, we hate Notre Dame. Like, I'll tell you
It's
that much.
it's kind of it's probably how Indiana fans consider Kentucky,
Yeah.
and that they're like they're our rival, and Kentucky fans are like, what? No, like
But
that's
we're in state too.
yeah,
Like, it's
it
an
is. Yeah.
in-state rivalry. They may not be conference, but it's definitely an in-state rivalry.
Well, and it's a rivalry in the sense that we played for what 100 years or
Yeah.
something like that. And as a kid, that was always the game. That
Yeah.
was always the game that like you had circled on your calendar. But the
Yeah.
what I was getting to is that it was always a close game. No matter
Yeah.
how bad Purdue was, no matter how bad Notre Dame, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It was just like you could throw stats, you could throw rankings, you could throw all that out the window. I mean, even the last time they came to Ross State, it was a close game. I think it
Yeah.
was what Akeem Hunt had two touchdowns. Almost got in a physical altercation with a Notre Dame fan.
Jeez.
Uh,
One of
yeah,
the most calm, demeanored people I've ever met is Frank, and the fact to watch you try and get in an altercation would be
yeah.
interesting.
Well, they supposedly don't like because they Notre Dame fans they do this whole thing,
Oh, yeah.
and I told them they look like Rock'em Sock'em robots, and they didn't. The guy didn't appreciate that.
Oh,
Got
that's
really
funny.
mad.
That guy's a hardo.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. That was
Get
a fun game. I was
get a
like
life.
fifth row in the north end zone. Um,
What a turd
Cody
that guy
says,
was.
don't forget we're playing for a rivalry
The
trophy. Agreed.
shillelagh.
That's one thing Walters talked about, and he was asked about it on his radio show. And that, when in the era of the transfer portal and you have out of state kids and stuff, and we haven't played Notre Dame in a while, um, do you have to like stir up that sense of rivalry in them? And he said that it's a very real thing, but he said he's basically spent all off season like generating hate for Notre Dame among
Good.
the players.
Good.
So I'm gonna love to see that. Nick wants to know, fellas, you come in this week. Dylan is, I am not, Nick. And he also says, give me Boilers by 5.
I like it.
Yeah, well, that puts us around the 30-minute mark. Dylan, any closing thoughts before we sign off the short episode?
No, I'm excited. I'm glad we got an episode in this week. Schedules are a little hectic, but
Oh
the
yeah.
big brain and I got in here and we got her done. We're running the show here, putting the show on her shoulders. But no, man, I'm excited. I think it'll be a fun game. Anytime at Ross State's a good time. But if you get to beat Notre Dame, that makes it even better. So I'm hoping for a big win for the Boilers and the first big brick win for Walters in his tenure at Purdue.
Cody wants to know, are we scheduled to play Notre Dame next year? I don't believe so. I
No, I
don't
don't
believe
think
we're
so.
playing them next year. Yeah, I'm hyped. I'm sad I can't go, but I'll be watching it on TV. I can't wait to hear how Ross Aid sounds on TV. I know it's going to be electric in there.
It's gonna be a good time.
But yeah, Boilers by a billion.
Let's do it.
Let's do
Boiler up, ladies and gentlemen. You can find us on Twitter or X. I don't know what my dog's doing. He jumped about something. Wow. Anyway,
Still call it Twitter.
yeah. Oh, it's still Twitter. At Boiler Express _. You can find us on Facebook, Boiler Express Pod. You can find us on YouTube, where I think we just passed over 200 subscribers. So that's a pretty big deal.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. You can find us anywhere and everywhere. We're here normally every Tuesday night, but this week we had a little wrench thrown in the schedule, so we're here on a Wednesday night. So you get to see us an extra night. But we'll hopefully see you all this weekend. If you see me, holler. Section 124. If you're there, let me know. And boiler up, hammer down, beat Notre Dame.
Get the dub.
Let's go.